All right, let's head down to the next one, the next big game of the night, right? We're the Battle of Death Valleys going down to Clemson, LSU. That game ended up in the favor of the Tigers in yellow and purple. Brian Kelly and company came into Death Valley and won 17-10. This was an interesting one. The first half a little slower on the offensive side, kind of picked up in the second half, but just an overall interesting one. And the narrative around it right now is, from what I've seen, is do we have to look at this LSU team differently now that they have defense?
Yeah, Blake Baker, year two. I think everybody expected this defense to take a leap. We didn't know just how big of a leap they would take, but they certainly did take a leap, right? And I think one thing that was the biggest, most impressive thing for LSU this weekend was just how their transfers molded together, especially on the defense side of the ball. You don't see it often. They brought in a lot of transfer guys, addressed starters, depth pieces. They added attrition like no other, and I think that was very clear, especially defensively. And I mean, you saw transfers everywhere flying around for that team, and I think it's just really, really cool to see them all come together and mold over what what's the time? 6 months, 7 months. So that was really cool. And Blake Baker, I think has put college football on notice that he's one of the best defensive coordinators in college football, like he did when he was at Mizzou. And it was cool to see Harold Perkins back out there. He looked healthy. He looked good. He looked ready to roll.
Defense improved, certainly looked stronger, looked ready to rock. One guy that stood out to me, Mansour Delane, the transfer from Virginia Tech, looked at those numbers, 8 targets at him, 1 reception allowed, had an interception, 3 forced incompletions. He was a guy on the end that really stood out to me. But I guess aside from the defense, from the corners, the line I thought really, really forced Cade Klubnik to make it, put a lot of pressure on him. Frankly, they threw a lot at Cade, in my opinion, and just getting him to make uncharacteristic decisions, having Dabo Swinney basically shut down the run game earlier than he would have liked. I thought that played a pretty big part in it too, because Clemson wasn't effective running the ball at all. I mean, 32 yards total on 19 rushing attempts, and I think they got away from it too early, but also that's a credit to the defensive line that LSU has produced and how they played last night.
Yeah, man, LSU's D-line was really, really good, and we came into this game expecting that the Clemson front seven was going to be one of the best front sevens, if not the best front seven in college football, right, from its pure talent standpoint. And they returned so much. It looked on paper like, wow, right? I mean, yeah, you mentioned that running game. Shout out LSU's defensive line, right, but also Clemson and not taking a portal running back. There's a lot of question marks for Dabo, and why are we moving a wide receiver to running back in the year 2025, Dabo? You know, it gets to a point where we've got to come to the reality. And Dabo, you go spend millions on a coordinator, defensive coordinator, but you won't chunk up a few $100,000 for a talented running back out of the portal. Didn't make much sense to me, to be fully honest. And I think it was really apparent that no running game just hurt Clemson as a whole. Their offense staggered because it forced them to throw the football probably more times than they like. Cade Klubnik to the ball 38 times. Having no running game, having no sense of presence on the offensive line gives Blake Baker, the guy who schemes up crazy blitzes, just the advantage to kind of do what he wants, right? Like, so when they can't run the ball and they're strictly passing it, Blake Baker's having himself the greatest day of his life, right? He's like, I'm going to run a stunt blitz here. I'm going to run corner blitz here. I'm going to bring the nickel over here and make him just troll. I thought he's blitzing. I'm going to line up both my linebackers like they're coming up. So Blake Baker had fun because they couldn't run the ball. LSU had fun because Clemson could not run the ball. And Clemson's offensive line struggled in pass protection, probably largely in due part because they couldn't run the ball, right? So it's a domino effect, and Clemson just I'm just be flat out. I don't know how long the Clemson segment needs to be, solely because of the fact that I was really, really disappointed in Clemson. Hats off to LSU, but Clemson returned 17 starters, and they just did not look the part. And they were my preseason number 1 team. I stand on it. I thought that team returned 17 guys. I was like, oh my gosh, Dabo, I would argue, is the most proven head coach in college football. But Dabo's reluctancy to use the portal at an elite level, like a program like LSU, who only returned 7 guys. Like, let that sink in. LSU returned 7, Clemson returned 17, and LSU just ran laps on them in Death Valley. Fake Death Valley context. It's just crazy, right? Like, I don't know how many transfers LSU brought in. It was a lot. I think it's like 20 plus, some astronomical number. And It's a difference maker, man. That's why you got to love college football in week 1 right now, because a team can bring back 17. But if you hit on that transfer portal class, like another team that we're going to talk about here soon, a lot can happen, and you can make magic happen.
What I thought was the difference on the field, right? Dabo talked about it after the game. He was prepared for what he thought the LSU defense would throw at him, a cover one defense with a single safety. They prepared for that, and yet they still played the way they did. The execution was the difference. LSU, they blitzed Cade Klubnik 67% of the time. So 2/3 of the plays, they were blitzing Cade Klubnik. Clemson didn't answer to that pressure at all. If anything, they faltered. The Clemson defense was tough, but Garrett Nussmeier did his thing and knifed right through it. An interesting stat I saw on Nussmeier, an average of 2.1 seconds for time to throw. He is going like quick. Got to get the ball out quick. And when you go 28-38 with just over 230 yards and a touchdown, and you lead the team in the second half the way he did, it was a first half to second half adjustment that jumped off the page for me from Nussmeier.
Yeah, I think LSU made the right adjustments. Clemson didn't. I would be doing Clemson fans a disservice. Antonio Williams going down definitely did not help them to that offense, right? But at the end of the day, like, dude, you're Clemson. Okay, people have you winning the national championship. When you're winning the national championship, you need to be able to replace a guy, okay? Like, he might be your wide receiver 1. Like, prime example is Texas last year, going into the year, C.J. Baxter, okay, out for the year. Starting running back that was a freshman phenom, out for the year. Guess what? Texas reloaded, had a guy in Trey Wisner who led the SEC in rushing last year, right? Or is the leading returning rusher in the SEC. So you got to be able to do that, and Clemson's just not at the pace to do that right now. But LSU, Nussmeier, those adjustments were beautiful, and LSU also got robbed of a touchdown. I thought Brown caught that ball. So really it was like a 2-touchdown game, in my opinion. I know Clemson had a little chance there at the end, but in the second half, I think LSU just looked like flat out the better team, and it was just – It's weird watching Clemson lose at home, dude. It's weird. They went through that stretch of 40-something wins in a row, 50-something with Trevor Lawrence, where they were winning home games by like 50 every time. Okay, and so it's weird watching them lose. But Clemson's got a long way. There's a long season. Okay, and they played in the ACC. They can still. I'm not writing Clemson off yet. They were still my preseason number 1 team, but they've got to put it together, and it's got to happen quite quickly, in my opinion.
Tiger fans on both sides, keep their high hopes. He's got a question here, Canyon.
Yeah, question. Not a question, statement. Not a question, statement. Shout out LSU's offensive line. Bunch of dogs, okay? I ranked that LSU team, I think, 10 in my preseason rankings. And the reason why I was like, dude, too many transfers, offensive line, I was worried, okay? I was like, dude, that just didn't suit me.
4 new starters on the O-line for LSU.
And them dudes balled against a very, very good front 7. So shout out the LSU offensive line. You guys deserve to go to the best steakhouse in LSU, and Garrett Nussmeier deserves to buy you dinner.
Whip out the PayPal there, Garrett. Start paying the bills for these guys. They deserve it.